Well, Rob, there's another team on the brink, and we talked about them briefly in the last hour. That's the Philadephia 76ers. Down 3-1, going back to New York for Game 5. And I don't know, Rob. I picked the Knicks in 7. I'd be surprised at this point if it reaches 7 games.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to go 7. I mean, it just it doesn't feel that way. I mean, Early on, we talked about it. Like, they could have won the first 2 games at Madison Square Garden, Philly.
Especially the second one.
Right.
And they got that one stolen from them by the refs.
Yes, 2 fouls that weren't called.
Yep.
Not 1, but 2.
And they failed to call the timeout by the coach.
Yep.
I mean, all of this was acknowledged by the league, so it's not like we're just saying it.
belly aching over it, right?
Yeah. But, Rob, I was not at Game 4 in Philly, but by all accounts, it was at least half Knicks fans there. Or that's what it felt like, at least, with the cheers and the boos and who the fans were rooting for.
It felt like a Knick game. I got to admit. It felt like a Knick game. And, Chris, we talked about it. We both covered the Knicks. I remember in my heyday of being a beat writer going to Atlanta with all the Knicks fans. You remember Atlanta used to be like Madison Square Garden South.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
And they're New Yorkers all over the place. We know that. New Yorkers are like roaches. They're everywhere, okay? But I thought that was a bad look for Philly fans. It spoke volumes to me, Chris, that they don't believe in this team. They don't believe, like, they weren't out of this series like they were down 0-3 and they had been hammered by any stretch.
Embiid had just dropped 50.
Thank you. And to sell your tickets, Chris, and give up your seats to your team tells me you're not buying Embiid and what's going on with this team and this roster. You don't feel good about it. Philly sold out. They sold out on them. If I'm Embiid, I'm bummed. I get that they played terrible, Chris, at the end, 0 for the last 11 shots or whatever it was down the stretch. That could happen. You can go cold. You can't make shots. But they didn't know that going into that game, right? That was they didn't know that you gave up your tickets before that.
They looked at making money. That's all that was. And look, hey, they made some cash. But Rob, here Embiid, you said you'd be bummed. He was. Here he is.
Our fans think it's unfortunate, and I'm not calling them out, but it is disappointing. Obviously, you got a lot of Knicks fans, and they're down the road and never seen it. And I've been here for 10 years. Yeah, kind of pisses me off, especially because Philly is considered a sports town. So, they've always shown up, and I don't think that should happen. Yeah, it's not okay.
Chris, 100%. Philly, the Eagles, you better not wear another jersey in that building, Chris. You know that. You'll be fighting if you go down there and wear a Dallas Cowboys jersey at a game in Philly. You know how they are about the Phillies. You know how they are about the Flyers. And it is shocking. We know New York is a quick hour and 10-minute train ride, Chris, so it's an easy commute for New Yorkers, right? But I was shocked, and I think he was being nice. He should have been irate and disappointed in the Philly fans.
Well, I agree. I agree that it was unseemly that they had as many Knicks fans there or that the Knicks fans took over the Garden. And like you said, Rob, this is
took over the Garden, Chris.
I'm sorry. Right. Took over the Sixers arena. And Philly, it makes it even worse, Rob, that Philadelphia is such a sports town, right? That makes it even worse. I mean, if they had done that in Miami or even, as you mentioned earlier, Atlanta, it's not, I mean, those are bad sports now. Miami, to me,
is the worst.
It's terrible. Atlanta might be the worst. They're both bad.
They're bad. And, Chris, I've been to Miami for the opening season of a Dolphins game, not a sellout. Like the first game of the year in Miami, I've been to that. We know the Marlins can't draw. They had all the fans for the World Baseball Classic down there, Chris, in South Beach. So they're baseball fans down there. They don't go to the games.
Rob, I wrote when LeBron was in Cleveland for his first stint, the November before he became a free agent. So it was his last year in Cleveland, that first go-round. I wrote a story. They were going to play the Heat. And I wrote a story saying, and I had no idea that this was going to happen, but I wrote a story on ESPN.com saying LeBron James might need to consider going to Miami if he wants to beat Boston and get a championship. Because I was like, they got a big three. He doesn't have the supporting cast.
Right.
You know, D Wade. I don't even know if I mentioned Bosh, but I was like him and D Wade. And Rob, if a story like that had been written about somebody maybe going to the Knicks, that crowd would have had signs. They would have been cheering that guy. They would have made him feel at home. They would have rolled out the red carpet. Miami fans didn't get there as usual until like the second round. The lower bowl was not full until the second quarter. I mean, that's just how they are. And even when they were winning, Rob, with the Heatles, I mean, yeah, they was sold out and packed, but they weren't close to as good of fans as most of these cities, when they got a championship.
I'm with you. Miami's bad. Atlanta's bad.
Yep.
I once wrote a column for ESPN.com, Chris, called Atlanta the worst sports town in America. You know what? The only reason I know the year is because of the comments. It was 2012, so that was how many years? 12 years ago. 2012 for ESPN. NewYork.com. 7,000 comments, Chris, underneath the story. 7,000.
Agreeing, disagreeing?
No, like on both sides, but just the idea, 7,000 comments on a story? Incredible.
It's a terrible sports town. I was there when they won their World Series in 95, when they beat the Cleveland Indians. I was covering the Indians. And, Rob, it was about 75 people outside after they won, like in downtown. I was like, man, Cleveland, they would have
tore the place
crazy.
Down. Yes.
Right. It was like nothing. But anyway, that's the thing, Rob. They took over a sports fanatic type city. And here's what I will say, though. And I'm not excusing it, but I think I'm just presenting the truth. Rob, just like Joel Embiid was disappointed and ticked off, so are the fans. They're disappointed, Joel Embiid, and ticked off at you and your Sixers. Because you guys should be better than you've been. And I get it that you're hurt, but you're playing 40 minutes.
Right.
And Rob, Joel Embiid has scored 1 point in the last two fourth quarters. Joel Embiid has 2 rebounds in the fourth quarter in this entire series.
Wow.
And you know how much I praise Joel Embiid's jump shot. He is easily the best jump shooting big man ever.
You just said it the other day over Patrick Ewing, when you always believed Patrick was.
Yeah, undoubtedly. I mean, it's unbelievable how well he shoots. But Rob, he might as well be 6'5", because he sits out there at the three-point line and the free throw line, and he plays like he's a guard. And I get that that's a part of your game. You're so good at it. But when you need a bucket, go inside. That's what Jokic is outside a lot too. But when it's time, or when he has a mismatch, he backs you down. And that's what Joel Embiid needs to do. Rob, he had no rebounds in the fourth quarter. Rob, the Knicks' backup center, Mitchell Robinson, was out. All right, with an ankle injury. Isaiah Hartenstein played 2 seconds in the fourth quarter because of foul trouble. They were guarding a 7-foot, 300-pound Joel Embiid with Precious Achiuwa, 6'8", and OG Anunoby, 6'7".
Precious, I saw that movie.
There you go. But they were guarding him with those players. Come on, man. I mean, you should be destroying. You should be insulted. But the reason they can guard you with guys like that is because you've made yourself that short by just sitting around settling for jump shots. How about going inside and get some offensive rebounds? I mean, it's just so Rob, the fans are ticked off too. And Joel Embiid didn't pay him money for the fans to come see him. They're paying money to go see him. So I get it that he's disappointed and upset, but so are they. Because year after year, season after season, this is what they see. And so it goes both ways. It was a bad look for Philly fans, but they're like, man, this is enough. This process, when's it going to pay off?
Chris, 100%. And that's why you give up your tickets in a playoff series where your team is only down 2-1, got jobbed out of game 2 at Madison Square Garden. It easily could have been 2-1 Philly, Chris. Can we say that?
Oh, yeah. No doubt.
Going into that game, and there's a series there, and for them to sell their tickets ahead of time and say, I'll just take the cash because I'm not really buying into what this team is selling or the idea of how good they can be and if they're ever going to win a championship, it speaks volumes. I was stunned at the crowd noise and the reactions when the Knicks made baskets in Philly.
And Rob, I'm saying this because I would love to see Joel Embiid cap his career with a championship. The dude is a great player. He's a great scorer and shooter, and he is a good defender. But part of defense also is rebounding. And I get it, he got 10, but he had none in the fourth quarter when push came to shove.
And when it mattered, and they didn't get what were they, 0 for the last 11? Like that's what
he was 0 for 5 in the fourth. This is constructive criticism. And for whatever reason, it seems like nobody in Philly will tell him this. I'm sure they are, but he's not listening. If Joel Embiid wants to win a championship, watch tape this summer, because you're going to be starting summer vacation pretty soon, of Nikola Jokic. And watch when he decides, you know what, it's time, let me go inside. If you're not hitting shots in the fourth, Embiid, then go draw a foul. You're an excellent free throw shooter. Get to the line. If you were tired, and I'm sure you were because you came back late in the season, you played the whole second half, I get it. But Rob, what goes first when you get tired?
Your legs.
Your legs. Your jump shot.
Yep. That's the first thing you lose.
That's even more reason you need to get your butt down on the paint. He couldn't find the low post with a GPS. So they were ticked off too in Philly. Goes both ways, Joel. 877-99 on Fox. Your thoughts on the fans in Philadelphia basically letting the Knicks fans take over their arena. Were they justified, though? Because Philly, just let's face it, you played soft.